After writing and speaking, the hardest thing in IELTS is the reading. And if you're one of those people who is looking for strategies and shortcuts for reading, trust me, there are so many ways to attempt the reading module, and we're going to learn all the secrets today. If you ever found reading difficult, after this video, reading will become extremely easy for you. Of course, you have to practice and make these strategies work for you, but trust me, these strategies are the most comprehensive strategies you will see anywhere online. In fact, if you do go online, what happens is every website tells you something completely different, and most of these things don't work on most students. But all you gotta do is trust one resource, and I can guarantee you, after working with thousands of students and trying this method thousands of times, I can guarantee you the strategies I'm gonna teach you today are the best ones that you'll see anywhere, and this will guaranteed improve your reading band score drastically. So let's get started. Let's talk about reading, guys. So we're doing right now the IELTS academic reading, and some of you might be doing the general reading, but for you as well, we will work on academic reading. For anyone doing academic, obviously you do the academic reading, but for our general students, we tell them you have to practice with the academic reading. Why? Because the format is the same, but the difficulty level is so much more in the academic reading. Hence, when our students practice with us, let's say in classes they're scoring 6.5 in the academic reading, when they give the general exam, they score 7.5 to 8 because they go in the exam and they're like, this is so easy. But if you practice general and the actual exam is more difficult than the practice materials online, you will find it hard. So do the reverse approach. It works really well. Okay, let's talk about timing. For those of you who are doing the academic module, we have found the most suitable allotment of time is 18 minutes for passage 1, 19 minutes for passage 2, and 23 minutes for passage 3. Given that the difficulty level increases as the passages increase. For our general students, we used to recommend the same. However, we have noticed, and again, this video is as of 2021, the passage 2 and passage 3 nowadays have almost the same level of difficulty. Hence, now what we recommend is 18 minutes for passage 1 and 21 minutes for passage 2 and 21 minutes for passage 3, and this is for our general candidates. Okay, general module. Okay, so timing is important. At home, when you practice, give yourself even lesser time. Okay, so maybe you want to give yourself 15 minutes for passage 1 at home, or 18 minutes for passage 2 and passage 3 at home. So if you challenge yourself more, once again, it's the same idea. Make it hard for yourself and the exam will become much more easy. All right, let's get started. You will see the page that I've opened up here is for the list of headings questions, which we'll attempt first, and I will break down the strategy for this set of questions. Then there's another strategy for true, false, not given, and another one for no more than 2 words. There are different strategies for every section. If someone ever tells you that there's one strategy for all of them, it's incorrect. It's just not possible. That's not how it works. Every section needs their own strategy. So let's talk about this one right here in front of us. The list of headings. Okay, the most common thing you would see online being talked about the list of headings is answers are mostly in the first or the last lines. The last lines is kind of a myth. Okay, yes, sometimes you find the answers in the last few lines of the paragraph. For example, what they're telling me is basically here I'll find the answer and here on top I'll find the answer. Okay. Just a sec. Okay, so I should be finding answers in the first and the last lines. However, it's not always true with the last lines. 20% of the times the answers are in the last few lines. 60% of the times the answers are in the first few lines, and the rest of the times it's in the middle. So this start thing is very important, and this is because of the simple reason that for even newspapers, articles, magazines, for everything, the answers are always at the first line that contain the main idea of the whole paragraph. Because when people write articles, academic writers, their job is to make the idea clear in the very first line of the paragraph. So that strategy always works, okay? If you apply this in this passage, what you will see is something like this. The 16th and 17th centuries saw two great pioneers of modern science. This whole paragraph, the answer for this was number 5, pioneers of the early science. So that fit the description. D, Gilbert was first interested in chemistry but later changed his focus. I haven't even read the whole sentence, but we know the answer was his change of focus. And in this case, for paragraph B, Gilbert's birth predated Galileo, born in an... So I get the idea that they're talking about his birth, which means it's got to be the early years of Gilbert. And all of them are correct answers. So usually, if you're in a rush, it's a great strategy to just do what I did, look at the first few lines and get the answer. However, don't do it always like that. I mean, these ones were easy, but it's always not that easy. An example here is paragraph C. Okay, so we'll look at that and answer the question. But the idea is mostly, yes, you will find a lot of success in the first few lines, but make sure to read the rest of the paragraph as well, just to make sure. So one thing you can do is, for example, here, read the first few lines in detail, and then quickly you can read the next few lines. So you can speed up the reading a little where it's less important. All right. Now, what I'd like you guys to do is read paragraph C. I'll give you guys some time. Okay, we'll read paragraph C, then we'll go up and try to match it. Focus more on the first few lines, and I'll give you guys a few seconds. Okay, the amount of time I've given you guys is enough for reading this much of the paragraph. If you haven't read it yet within this time, it means you're reading slow and you need practice. Anyway, with what we read, let's go up and match it. Give you guys a few more seconds. Please think about the answer. Okay, all right. Now, we don't know what your answer is, but let me tell you from experience, what happens is people usually pick this one or this one. Okay, these two are the usual answers. So give you guys a few more seconds. If you're in between here, pick your final answer. For those of you who picked this one, becoming the president of the Royal Science Society, you are wrong. And you might be surprised because it says very clearly here, all this culminated in his election to the president of the Royal Science Society. Exact same sentence. However, it is incorrect because the question we're answering here is the list of headings. Headings means the main idea. If he was the president of the Royal Science Society, it's not the main idea. It's just one sentence. But if you look at it overall, it talks about how he was a successful and eminent doctor. He became the president then, and then he was also appointed a personal physician to the Queen, later to the King, and that whole thing, mainly his idea here, is about his professional and social recognition, or his career, and that answer matches the most number 6, professional and social recognition. Because again, you're focusing on the main idea, the whole heading, not just one sentence. And that's how examiners trick you. So be careful. Remember, you're answering for the list of headings. Okay, so the two things we've learned are that the answers are usually in the first few lines of the paragraphs. We've also learned that we're looking for the main idea, not just one-liners, but the whole idea. And the third thing that I'll tell you for the list of headings is you got to read the questions first. So we actually did it the wrong way. I made you read paragraph C and then come back here, but that was just for the purpose of this exercise. In the exam, what you want to do is read all the questions first, all of them, okay, 1 to 10. And how you would read them is with keywords. Keep some keywords in your mind. So you would keep early years and Gilbert. Okay, great. Something about his scientific research method, something about chemistry, something about astronomy and questioning astronomy. Then he's pioneer. Okay, someone is pioneer and recognition and so on. You get the idea. We're doing it fast because we don't have much time. And yes, you won't remember a lot of it, but you will remember enough that once, for example, you're reading paragraph B and you hear this word birth and born and so on, your mind would instantly click that there was something about his birth and something about his early years, and you'll come back up here and you'll say, probably it's number 1. Okay, and sometimes it'll click like that, sometimes it will not, depends on how your memory is, and you can make your memory better with more practice. However, with looking at all the questions at the start and then answering, your mind remembers and matches them much quicker and much more accurately. Okay, so we read all the questions, then we go to do paragraph A, go back and answer. Then paragraph B, go back and answer, and so on. All right, and that's it. Those are the strategies for the list of headings. Now, let's go down here. And we have some true, false, not given questions, which we'll check out in a bit. There's a big exercise that I'm going to do here with you guys. Before that, let's check this out. It says choose 3 letters A to F. Okay, so A to F, we got to pick 3 things. Which 3 of the following are parts of Gilbert's discovery? Now, this is great. This is really good because which 3 are parts of Gilbert's discovery? Now, you have the clue. All you got to do is find where Gilbert's discovery is being mentioned. So if we skim through the whole passage, go up and down, quickly check for words like Gilbert discovery, or paraphrase it, okay? They might say things discovered by Gilbert or Gilbert's findings. Make sure to paraphrase it in your mind too. It's usually not the exact same keywords. A good example was right here where it said early years, and when the answer matching it was B, it didn't say early years anywhere. It just says Gilbert's birth and he went to grammar school, so obviously it means early years. Okay, so it doesn't have to be the exact same wording. So once again, we're trying to find out Gilbert's discovery. Fortunately, for this passage, we found it right here. It was not that complicated. They didn't paraphrase it. And I now know that the answers will come after this part because this is talking about Gilbert's discovery. Another reason I know this is because if you look at the questions, these are 11 to 13. Before this, we had 8 to 10. So since I have done this test, I know that questions 8 to 10, I found the answers to them right here, between paragraphs A and D. Okay, so if I found the answers for 8 to 10 here, then 11 to 13 should be here, just below. It's not always the given thing, but a lot of times it is. I would say 80% of the times, it's the sets are in this kind of sequence. So again, paragraph E, onward, we're going to now start reading. But before starting to read, a famous strategy in IELTS is to look at the keywords. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, let's look at the keywords again quickly. So metals can be transformed into another. Garlic, something about garlic. Something about metals being magnetized, about stars, and axis, the earth, and about electricity. Okay, so keep these things in your mind. And they can be paraphrased. I mean, garlic wouldn't be paraphrased, earth wouldn't be paraphrased, but transformed, they can say changed. Stars at different distances, they can say at various distances or various destinations. Not sure, it could be anything. So keep some of the keywords in your mind, but also be ready if you see a paraphrased sentence. All right, so we found that the paragraph for this one was paragraph E. Let's go down there. And now we're going to start reading. Okay, so you're going to read it, and for this purpose, the purpose of this exercise, I'm just going to speed this up and bring you guys to this part. It says superstitions. So superstitions are things like good luck or bad luck or ghosts, not something that is real. It says superstitions such as that rubbing garlic on lodestone can neutralize its magnetism. Okay, now think for a sec. Do you guys think the answer is this one? If you said yes, you're wrong. Okay, because this is exactly mentioned up there, but it's not part of Gilbert's discovery. It says, if we go back up there, it says superstitions. were these. So it's not Gilbert's discovery, so it is exactly mentioned here, but it's just a trick. Okay, so this is how examiners trick you. Remember, what we're looking for, the keyword is Gilbert's discovery. So ignore that and you keep on reading, and it says Gilbert also found, so this is important, he found that metals can be magnetized by rubbing. Okay, so metals can be magnetized, he found that, and is there an option matching it? Yes, it is. Metals can be magnetized, it is Gilbert's discovery. C is one of the answers. All right, let's continue reading. And since I've done this before, I'll just bring you guys to the important part. This sounded very near to an answer. It says, it's a French guy named Dufay that discovered that there are actually two electrical charges, positive and negative. You think this one matches this one here, F? Again, if you said yes to it, it's incorrect. Once again, it is mentioned, but it's not Gilbert's discovery. It goes up here and says it's a French guy who discovered it. So once again, trick. And that's why this is also the wrong answer. So now we got to keep reading, but you also want to do every time, not only in this question, but every time in multiple choice, true, false, not given, and these questions, do a midpoint check. See what you are left with. Now, you have C as the answer, B is a trick question, and F is a trick question. So usually, trick questions also don't repeat. So what you're left with is A, D, and E. You got to find 3. You found 1 already. So between A, D, and E, you got to find 2 of them. So even if you find the wrong 2, you at least will have 1 of them correct. So chances are better. And now we're just going to review these words. Metals can be transformed into another star, or something about stars, and the earth. Okay, now you have just specific keywords, and it's going to be easier to find them as we go into paragraph F right here. Okay, so now you're going to read them, and you will find that the answers were, I believe, D and E, because there was something mentioned about the orbits and the axis and something about the stars, and of course you can pause this video to check that out. But again, strategy-wise, what we did was first found the keyword, went up there, found the keyword, then we read all the keywords in the options, then we went into the paragraphs and started reading very smartly. We made sure that we're not being tricked by the examiner. They will mention a lot of these words, but not all of them are the answers, because we're looking for only Gilbert's discovery. Once one paragraph was done, we did a midpoint check and we said, okay, we're left with these options. Let's focus on these keywords, and we continued. This was relatively easier than what you get in other cases. For example, they might just say, which 3 of the following are true? Okay, if they say that, you're screwed, because they didn't mention anything specific like Gilbert's discovery. So now what you got to do is find out which 3 things are true in the whole passage. So we cannot just pinpoint 1 or 2 paragraphs for that. In that case, what you have to do is read all the keywords first. Okay, first what we did was different, right? We found Gilbert's discovery, we found paragraph E, then we read the keywords. But if it doesn't say anything specific like Gilbert's discovery, all you got to do is read all the keywords and then go all over the passage and find them, because we don't know which paragraph they're going to be in, so you would have to be quick in reading, and that's a nightmare whenever that happens. So what I would do in that case is make guesses, okay? Because for 3 points, you would have to read the whole thing. It's going to take so much time, and you're going to sacrifice other questions. So what you should do is guess. You know, from what I've read, maybe I think it's A, D, and E, or A, D, F, whatever. Mark them, circle them because you're unsure. So you just circle them for yourself, and just go on, do some other questions, okay? At the end of the exam, if you have time, then you go back up there and you finish this properly, and then you continue with whatever is needed. But we don't want to spend too much time here, because if it just says which 3 of the following are true, we have no idea where they're going to be in the passage, and you would have to read everything. So guess to the best of your knowledge, make an educated guess, and then leave it for the end. If you have time, you come back and do it again. It's worth it. Even if you lose a few points, it's worth it, because there's so much more work to do. Okay. All right, so that's it. Now we're going to go to the next passage. It's going to get a little harder, and this is passage 2. Once again, all right, let's talk about this. You guys must have seen I didn't skim the passage, okay? I'm just heading to the questions every time directly. This is I don't know who suggested this. I think it became a myth and it became really popular unreasonably that you should skim the passage. You can do that, guys, if you want to, but I'm gonna tell you it's the most useless strategy anywhere online. Okay, you should never spend even a minute skimming through the whole passage, because what are you really doing there? I mean, you need to know the questions and find the keywords and then go up and find them. We skim to find keywords. We don't just skim to just get an idea. Getting an idea is useless. You need to target your answers based on the questions. So don't skim through anything, just go to the questions, okay? And that's what we're gonna do here. So true, false, not given. For true, false, not given, I had to make a separate exercise, and we're gonna come back to that PDF in a sec. But for now, let's have a look at this exercise, because this is what confuses a lot of people. Okay, so in this exercise, we have taken some of the questions from some IELTS tests and put them right here. Okay, so there's the passage here, and then there's a question. Now, this passage was that relevant part of the whole passage that we just took out that matched this question, and you don't have to read the whole passage, we just took out that part. So essentially, I want to see if you can find the right answer based on reading the question and the related passage. The question here says, majority of the Egyptians believed that stones were gods. Passage matching it said, Egyptians generally believed that stones were gods. Do you think this is true, false, or not given? If you said true, very good. That is correct. True is the correct answer. So what we do is simply paraphrase this in your own words. Majority of Egyptians means most of the Egyptians, like more than 50%, and Egyptians generally believed, again, more than 50%. So in your own words, I'm saying that most of them, or over 50%, had the same idea, so this is true. Both of them are saying the same things. Good. Let's go to the next one. Have a look. Let me know if it's true, false, or not given. If you said false, it's incorrect. Okay, so it is not given, guys. It says Egyptians used to worship the stones, and it says Egyptians used to believe that stones were gods. Now, remember, if you believe in something, you don't have to worship. A lot of people believe in religions, but they don't worship, right? So these two things are not the exact opposite. If the question said Egyptians used to worship the stones, and the passage said Egyptians didn't worship the stones, that is the complete opposite. That would have been false. But if it's not the complete opposite, it's not true, obviously. It's got to be not given. Okay, and a little more definition on false is later on. So I will check that in a sec. But before that, have a look here. So this question is right here. It's pretty simple. This question part here talks about the word biased. If you don't know what that means, biased is you favor one thing more than the other. So you're not really equal, and that's what biased means. With that said, have a look. Don't worry about false. This is just the definition that we're going to look at later. But what do you think is the answer here? So obviously it's between false and not given. Okay. Think again. Take a few more seconds. It's very tricky. So, spoiler alert. If you guys said that it is false, you are wrong. The correct answer is not given. Okay, now let's understand why it's not given. Once again, the same rule that I mentioned here, let's have a look at that rule here. Okay, so the question is saying that the information was biased, and the opposite of biased is equal, fair, just. So the passage doesn't say equal, fair, or just, which means it doesn't really state the opposite. It says it was accurate and up to date, which is not the same thing as biased or even the opposite, like equality. So it's not the same, it's not the opposite, it's just different, which means it's not given. Okay, that's how you make sure you judge the right questions, and that's the definition of false. If you understand this definition, you will never have an issue in differentiating between false and not given. Okay, so the definition is change the question into its opposite meaning, And if you can find that meaning in the passage, it's false. I said bias, the opposite is just or equal or fair. I didn't find those words here, so it's not false. It is probably not given. Okay, that is the system you want to understand, and that's where most people fail. Okay, so if they don't know how to differentiate between false and not given, that's where the issues come up, and it's a very narrow line between them. Remember this definition, and you should not have issues with this moving forward. Now, are you really better? Let's have a look. Check out this passage. There was one passage, and on this sentence, or actually two sentences, there were 3 questions based on these. So have a look at the passage and let me know for all these questions. Tell yourself, is it true, false, not given, false? Have a look. Okay, let's get to it. Guys, the answers for all these questions is not given. Okay, so if you said not given, good job, congratulations. All of them are not given. All right, so look at this. The passage says the balance diet is the most important part of our health system. I think all the questions agree. Okay, that part is fine. This is the problematic part. So it says exercising has several advantages as well. And the opposite is it doesn't have advantages. Okay, so what is this saying? This is saying it's the most important thing and not exercising, which means exercising is not the most important thing. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have advantages. So it's not the opposite. It's not false. It's not true. It's not given. Okay, here it talks about the importance for exercising, and here also it talks about how important exercising is for our body, but we don't care about how important, less important, or little important it is. We care about advantages. If it has advantages, it's true. If it doesn't have advantages, it's false. And we don't have any information about that. We have irrelevant information that makes it all not given. All right, so very tricky how this whole thing can be. But that's why if you remember that definition of false, you will not stumble. Okay, with that said, when we have the actual test, the few things more you have to add to the steps are keywords, of course, because now you have to go up and find this location. All right, so 14, simple. Look at the keywords. The average summer temperature in 2003 is almost 4 degrees higher than the average temperature of the past. Keywords, really good ones, are things that cannot be paraphrased. 4 cannot be paraphrased. I mean, they're not going to say 3 plus 1, right? So 4 is a good keyword, but be careful. They might say FOUR instead of the number 4, so it can still be tricky. 2003 cannot be paraphrased. Average summer temperature can be paraphrased, but we'll take this keyword in our brain. Higher, they might say higher or exceeding or something more. So again, we're looking at keywords, looking at paraphrasing in our head, and then we're simply going to go up and try to find where this stuff is. I know that this is somewhere here since I've done this passage before, but if you haven't, you would skim through, you would try to find the keywords, the location, and there's something mentioned about excess temperature here, and you would want to stop here, or if you missed that, at least you go on the next page, you see that they're talking about 4 degrees. So we were talking about exceeding temperatures and 4 degrees, and then you would read this area and make sure you get the answer. The answer in this case was true. Again, you can check that out later. You can pause the video to understand, but mainly I wanted to show you that you want to look at the keywords, kind of paraphrase them. As I said, instead of higher, they might say exceeding, and that's what happened. They said exceeding. So it could be changed. Now, what would have happened if I read 14 and it was not given, for example? I would have wasted a lot of my time, right? Because I would be looking for 14 in the whole passage, and I would say, I can't find it, I can't find it, I can't find it, I can't find it. I'm all the way at the end of the passage, and, well, I can't find 14, it's not given, now let me go to 15. And then for 15, I would go all the way back up in the passage again, right? What a waste of time. So what I should do instead is read 14 and 15 together. For example, if 14 is not given and I cannot find it, at least I'll find 15 and I can start from 15. I'll save a lot of time this way. Okay, so important to read 2 questions at a time when you do true, false, not given. In fact, from passage 2 onwards, you should read 2 questions at a time because things get a little tricky and harder from passage 2 onward. So let's do that. Let's read 15 and 16. Keywords, okay, so global warming and human activities, and Jones, something about Jones believes temperature variation is normal. All right, cool. We'll go up, and we'll go up in a way that we stay with our sequence. We found the last answer here, so the next ones should be down here, which they are, and usually it's in sequence, okay, so that's why you want to think it's that way, and we'll talk more about sequence in a sec. Let's continue reading. This is quite remarkable. Professor Jones, this was one of our keywords, and he says it's very unusual in a statistical sense. In the question down here, it said, let's check it out here. Jones believed that temperature variation is within the normal range. And there he's saying it's unusual, so it's the opposite thing, and that means it is false. As for global warming, you keep reading, you see global warming caused by human actions, and that is correct because the question said global warming is caused by human actions, so it's correct. Now, what I want to tell you here is this answer, if you noted, it came at the end of that paragraph, right here. And the other answer came here. That was for Jones. That was for this question. So 16 came before 15. Can happen. Okay, this is another reason why you read 2 questions at a time. Because if even they're a little out of sequence, it shouldn't be more than a few lines apart. And if you read 2 at a time, you can find them. And again, 2 is good. The brain cannot retain 3 or more. So we aim for 2, and with any sequence, we can find the answers. Ideally, though, it should all be 1 by 1, 14, then 15, then 16, but can be a little apart. In some cases, if you are really unlucky, what's going to happen is everything will be out of sequence. Okay, so 19 might be at the start of the passage, 15 might be at the end, 14 might be in the middle. So you never know how it's going to work out. But 10% of the times it happens, so I hope you don't get that situation and you shouldn't worry about that much. You should go with the assumption that things are in sequence and practice with that. But if you note that, 14 was all the way at the end and 15 was somewhere there, in that case, you are screwed, and all you gotta do is read all the questions. Read all the questions, read all the keywords, then go in the passage and find whatever keyword comes first, you match it then. Okay, it becomes hard, it becomes more inaccurate, but there's no other way to do it. It just becomes like the list of headings. You don't know which is going to come first, so you simply look at all the keywords, and then whatever you find first, you come back down and match it with that. That's true, false, not given for you. Okay, let's go to our next part, and this is no more than 2, no more than 3 words. Same strategy for both, so we're going to discuss both at the same time. This is very similar to listening. Okay, we use the same strategy in listening very successfully, and if you haven't seen my video on listening, again, you should be getting this as part of this package, and it's on my channel as well. So we'll check right now the strategy as it applies to reading. When you're asked to put in these words, you have to focus on 2 things. Number 1 is keywords. Number 2 is prediction. Keywords, for example, for number 20 are 2 hottest years. Britain, okay, these are good keywords. 2003, maybe. I mean, it's mentioned all over the passage, so maybe not. But keywords are there, and if you want to paraphrase them, instead of Britain, maybe they'll say the British people, could be. Hottest years, maybe they'll say the warmest years. Maybe they'll say the record hottest years. Okay, so you paraphrase the keywords, not just look at the keywords, but also always paraphrase them. I've been saying this since the start of this video, so remember, they can paraphrase it and you should do it too. If you do it and the examiners do it, most likely you guys will come up with the same words, and that's why you should always do it. Mostly you'll be accurate. Prediction, the number 2 strategy for these kinds of questions are predictions. So it says 2 hottest years. Obviously, it's going to be the years, 1980, 1910, whatever. Obviously, you want to think in that term, and now you'll be looking for numbers. Okay, so you wouldn't have to skim through every word, but mainly numbers because your prediction tells you, hey, I'm trying to find 2 years. Okay, if we look at 20 and then we look at 22, they're very similar. All right, it says the other 2 hottest years around the globe were whatever. So I do this fun exercise with students where I make them do 22 and 20. And they mention 2 years, okay? They mention 2 years for this and 2 years for this. But students usually put them in the wrong places. What happens is their prediction game is really good. They know that they're looking for 2 years. They're looking for 2 years. But they forget that they're also looking for keywords. So the keywords that are relevant here are Britain. The 2 years are in terms of Britain, like other hottest years in Britain. And these two hottest years were around the globe. Globe was the keyword here. So if the students don't focus on globe and Britain and they just find two random hot years, they will get the wrong answers. So remember, these two strategies go together. Predict the answer and look at the keywords. Then we have this question here, just before we go into passage 3. Question 26. Okay, which of the following can be best used as the title of the passage? This question is at the end of all the questions, which is good. Obviously, it should be at the end because now you have read everything. If it is at the start, just ignore it. Do all the questions of that passage and do it at the end anyway. That's one strategy. The other strategy is for answering this, quickly skim through the whole passage one more time. Check out some of the main things that were mentioned, so by the time you come here, you have a good idea. And the third strategy, guys, is very simple, okay? I'll tell you right now, the answer for question 26 was D, the hot year in Europe. And how you can get this idea or this answer is with strategy number 3, read the actual title. Okay, so the actual title is the 2003 heat wave. It is the year when it was really hot, and the thing that matches it, that hot year in Europe. Okay, they usually paraphrase the title, and that's the simplest way to do it. So you can see it talked about global warming in all those places, but it was nowhere part of the title. And that's why even though you see 3 options about global warming, you're really thinking it's going to be global warming. It's not. Okay, so number 1, you skim through the whole thing. Number 2, do this question at the end. Number 3, read the actual title and paraphrase that. Okay, let's go into the devil of reading, which is passage 3. Passage 3 is the hardest thing if you're doing the general or academic modules. If you are doing general and you have never practiced with academic, again, I'm strongly recommending you practice with academic, and it will blow your mind how difficult academic part 3 is. That is exactly why you should do it for better practice. So let's get started. We have this. Passage 3 has 8 paragraphs, A to H. You got to match them with 27 to 33. This is very similar to what we did at the start, list of headings. Okay, so a few similarities are, number 1, all the questions, we don't know where they're going to be. We don't know the sequence. So we'll follow the same thing, which is look at the keywords from 27 to 33. Definition of phonology, sparks, something about sparks, something about data collection, something about necessity to encourage, and so on. And again, paraphrase them a little in your mind as well. You want to think of the definition, maybe the meaning or the idea of phonology, how sparks first became, well, sparks wouldn't be paraphrased, it's a name. How people reacted, maybe how people, maybe they won't say reacted, they'll just mention people were shocked, people were surprised, people were angry, and so on. Just look at the keywords, paraphrase them a little in your head. Then you simply go to the paragraphs. This is another similarity. You go to paragraph A, read the whole thing, come back down, and match it with the questions. Okay, so you match it with the questions. Maybe it's 28 is A, so you match it, and then you go up, read paragraph B, come back down, and match it. Now, the thing that is not similar to the list of headings is that the answers in the paragraphs are never going to be in the first or the last lines. They can be, but it's not a formula, okay? This is not list of headings. So guys, remember to differentiate it. This is not list of headings. This is finding information. So all this is simply, these things can be anywhere. Like this thing could be in the middle of the paragraph, at the end, or at the start. So you got to read the whole paragraph, and that's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, and that's why I hate these questions. But it's necessary for you to read the whole paragraph, okay? There is a way for you to save time, and I'll tell you about that in a sec. Before that, let me show you some really interesting things. So, assuming you have read the keywords in the questions, you're going to go to paragraph A and read it, right? Look at how difficult this is. It says, this first line, not that important. It says, the book's yellowing pages contain beekeeping notes made between this time and this time. So it's an old book with beekeeping notes. And it also says, successive Marshams continued compiling these for 211 years. So it's an old book that they kept compiling. And the answer that matched it was, and again, you can pause the video if you don't want the spoiler, but I'm going to get right into it. The answer was 33. A description of a very old record compiled by generations of amateur naturalists. Yes, it's an old record because it said the book's yellowing pages and also the old years, but it didn't say generations of amateur naturalists. It said, like, it didn't say anything close. It completely paraphrased it and said, successive Marshams compiled it. So Marshams is a surname, which means the generations of Marshams were compiling it, which matches the question, as you can see, generations of amateur naturalists. So, paraphrasing can be crazy sometimes, which it is here. Another question that almost nobody in our classes got correct was 27, the definition of phenology. So if you're looking for that, obviously you would look for, the main idea of phenology, the definition of phenology, yet it was never clearly mentioned. The answer was paragraph B. And look how they explained it. They said, these data sets and others like them are proving invaluable to ecologists interested in the timing of biological events or phenology. So they just said or phenology, which means all of this stuff that they just said is the definition of phenology, because you can say all of this or simply phenology. So that part in paragraph B was the answer for this question, the definition of phenology. Very awkward, right? So it's so hard sometimes to find the answer. You can use some smart techniques though. I mean, the definition of phenology should obviously be in the paragraph where they mention phenology at the very first time. So it should start with that, which was paragraph B. And again, you can use some logic, like Sparks is a name. So again, I'm going to find a name. It should be something, it cannot be something paraphrased. 31 and 33 are talking about description, so they should be paragraphs talking widely about whatever is being mentioned. So, you can use some strategies, and sometimes it's easier. For example, look at this question. Where did that go? Competition. All right, so 32 was talking about a competition, and, you're going through paragraphs, and you see paragraph D, you see the word competition right here. It clicks, you go and match it. In fact, this paragraph was so easy. It says contest, competition, so close words, and that was simply the answer. So they throw you a bone once here and there, but sometimes they usually make it really difficult. So always be careful, guys. Okay, now 34 to 36, same strategies. You will look at the keywords. Some really good keywords here are the names that can never be paraphrased. And you look at the prediction. All right, so Walter Coates, his record largely contained the information of, obviously it's going to be something serious. It's not going to be of TikTok or video games. It's going to be a research probably, and you want to predict something similar. Maybe he's doing an article, etc. So you would do it the way you do it. But here's what you can do. Guys, when you have this type of question, paragraph matching, I said earlier, I'm going to tell you about how you can make this faster, right? Because you're reading everything. Like, you got to read the whole paragraph. You don't just read the first few lines. If you're reading the whole thing, you're taking so much time. So why not combine these questions with something else? Okay? You can do this in the exams. You can match these types of questions with anything else. So for example, read 27 to 33 and keep 34 and 35. Keep these two keywords, these names in your head. And simply you go up, you start reading the paragraphs. You read paragraph A and you want to go back and answer the finding information questions. But while you're reading them, you see this name, Walter Coates. And later on, you would see the name Robert Marsham right here, right? So you can also, your mind would click and you would say, wait, those keywords are for the other questions. They're for 34 and 35. Let me do them too. And then once they are done, now keep in your mind North America and continue 27 to 33. But when you see North America, stop, answer for this, and then go back and continue. Why you need to do this is because, again, you're reading the whole paragraph, so don't waste that time. You can do multiple questions, but not more than 2 sets. Okay, so you do this set of questions, right here, and this set of questions right here, not more than this. All right. Another reason why we do this is, if you think about it, like if you read 27 to 33, you would do all the paragraphs, right? Then when you go to 34, you have to start all over again, right? So it doesn't make sense. That's why you should really combine it with some other questions. Okay. The second last type of questions we're going to do are the multiple choice questions right here, very important. And now we're going to start with 37. So a quick hint. As we discussed earlier, you see how questions 34 and 36 come before, obviously, 37 to 40. So where did I finish question 36? Once I'm reading, I know that question 36, probably I think it was paragraph D or E, that's where it finished, which means question 37 is going to be from that paragraph onward. Okay, so 37 is going to be just in the same sequence of reading, just from the paragraphs below. I can start from there, or what you can do, start from 40. 40 is the last question, and again, IELTS reading is usually in sequence, so you can go from the bottom of the passage. You can read from bottom to top. Okay, you can do 40 first, then 39, and so on. The strategy here is the same exact thing that we have discussed for listening, okay? Make sure to read only the question. For example, for 38, I'm going to read Mark Schwartz, very good name. It's not going to be paraphrased, so I'm going to read this, go up and find the answer. When I do myself, I know what the answer is, then I'm going to come and match it with the options. A big mistake that people make is they read the questions and they read the options and then they go up and find the answer, which is absolutely incorrect because 3 of the 4 options are going to be wrong. So you're looking for a lot of wrong information. What you got to do is read the question, find the answer yourself, and once you do, come back and match it. Okay. Once again, a good idea is to do 2 questions at a time. So try doing 37 and 38. If you're going from bottom, do 40 and 39. Simple reason. If you miss one of them while reading, you'll catch the other and you'll say, all right, maybe I should focus on this more, and then you won't lose sequence. Okay. So do 2 questions at a time for this as well. I want to attempt one question here with you guys, something really difficult. 39. It says, how do scientists suggest amateur data should be used? Okay, so we're going to check out how scientists are suggesting that. I'll show you paragraph G because I know the answer was there. Okay, so you can pause the video and read it because it's going to take a lot of time. But if you haven't paused the video, we're going to move on in 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Okay, assuming you have read it. Coming down, let's match it with the right answers. Have a look. A, B, C, or D. Again, it's a YouTube video, so you can rewind it and check the passage if you need to. Okay, ready? If you said the answer is A, you're correct. Okay, if you said the answer is D, you are incorrect. But why? You said applying statistical techniques in data collection. This is the exact same thing mentioned here. Have a look. Should be somewhere here. Yeah, all right. Right statistics can iron out some of the problems. So it's talking about the exact thing mentioned in the question, which means you're not wrong. But remember what the question said, the main keywords in the question, the main concept of the question. How do the scientists suggest amateur data should be used? Let's go back to that paragraph. The scientists suggested multiple things. They said that they have the need for careful quality control. They said the records are not rigorous enough. They suggest the right statistics can be used. They suggest creating standardized recording schemes. They suggested multiple things. And if you answered D, it was one of those things. It's not all of those things, which means A is a more complete option because it has improved methods. Certainly, all those methods mentioned were multiple methods, and they all come under A. D was just one of them. So while D is a correct answer, A is more correct. Okay, something that can encompass another option in it will be the better choice. Okay, so that was a tricky one, and I just want to show you guys that just so you know how tricky IELTS can be. We're almost done. we're just going to look at the matching types of questions because that's the last one we haven't looked at yet. Okay, guys, so when you're matching, you have two columns, A, B, C, and here you have 10, 11, 12, 13. 10, 11, 12, 13, once again, are in sequence, so you don't need to worry too much about the keywords there. Okay, you don't have to follow them. I mean, you would look at these keywords to go up in the passage, find the location, and read that part, but they will be easy to follow. These things will be paraphrased. Sadness could be depression, anger could be hatred, aggressiveness, happiness, great joyfulness, gratification, anything like that, right? So what I did is what you should do as well. Paraphrase them in your mind. So if you see that up there and the examiner has paraphrased it, you will be able to find it anyway. Okay. Another type of matching question is not quite the same, as in it's not just, match these sentences with those sentences. It's the names. And this is easy. If this comes in your exam, you should also combine this with another question. Simple reason being this is easy. Like Mary and Annette, obviously you will see her name. Peter, you would see his name. They will not be paraphrased. If they're ever paraphrased, maybe they'll say Miss Annette, Mr. Happer. And with two people, Mr. and Mrs. maybe Milner or Rasmussen. I'm not sure, but they might mention surnames. That's the only way they would paraphrase it. But at least the first time they mention the name, they mention the whole name. So you can easily find it. And once you do, you have to match it, of course, with what's here. But that's why, because it's the names, you can make sure you do some other question. Maybe I'm going to look at 23 to 26. I'm going to work on these. While reading this, if I encounter any name, like Marianne, I'm going to come back and answer this. Then back here. Then I find Peter, so okay, I'm going to answer this, and then back here. It will save you a lot of time if you do this. It also happens with dates. Okay, so instead of names, you have numbers sometimes, 1980, 1970, and then they say these events happened with those corresponding dates that you have to match. Same thing there, just do other questions, and when you see a date, you go back here, match it then when you see it. A complication that comes in this type of question, though, is maybe Marianne Annette said multiple things. Maybe she just didn't say A, she said probably A, B, C. Okay, so in that case, what you should do is mark all of it, A, B, C, and just put a note, Marianne Annette. Okay, at the end, you find out other people, Peter and so on. Someone would have taken B. Okay, someone really has said B clearly. So now you would say Marianne Annette is left with lesser options A and C. And at that point, you make your best judgment which one was said more clearly, and you find that. But yeah, sometimes it can be multiple things, and that's the only time it gets a little bit crazy. And that's it, guys. So that is all the reading type questions you would get in the IELTS exams. With these strategies, you will be much sharper because now you know exactly what you're looking for. You're not looking for useless information anymore. You're not reading everything. And in some cases, unfortunately, if you are reading everything, then we're doing multiple questions at the same time. So with these strategies, you'll be faster, sharper, and accurate in getting what you're getting. You wouldn't be tricked by paraphrasing because you will paraphrase yourself before you get into the questions, and you wouldn't be afraid of true, false, not given because now you know exactly what false is. When you know what false is, if it's not false, it's obviously going to be not given, and if it's true, obviously it's going to be very clear. You know about sequencing as well, so you wouldn't let sequencing trick you, and you know multiple ways to tackle any tricks that the examiners throw at you, but just be careful. Sometimes it gets really difficult, and that's why you need to keep practicing. Use these strategies multiple times, and you would see your reading mark improve drastically after this. I can promise you that. We've seen that with our students time and time again, and I'm sure if you were scoring a band 6 after this, once you apply these strategies and you practice, you'll be scoring a band 7 in no time. Thank you, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Talk to you soon.